The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. Marcus Aurelius wrote that in 170 AD, and it became the most powerful success formula ever created. This is the exact mindset that let John D. Rockefeller build an empire during the worst financial panics in history. It's what let Ulysses S. Grant ignore exploding shells and win the Civil War. It's what kept Rubin Hurricane Carter unbreakable for 19 years in prison until he walked out free. You're getting the complete system, the three disciplines of perception, action, and will that turn trials into triumph. Chapter 1. The Discipline of Perception. Before he became the richest man in the world, John D. Rockefeller was a 16-year-old bookkeeper in Cleveland, Ohio. He had taken his first job at 50 cents a day and was just starting to find his footing when the panic of 1857 struck. Banks failed, businesses collapsed, grain prices plummeted, and a deep depression settled over the country. Most people panicked or gave up. Rockefeller did the opposite. He stayed completely calm. While others lost their heads, he quietly saved his money and watched what everyone else was doing wrong. He studied the weaknesses in the economy that people had taken for granted, and he taught himself one of the most valuable lessons of his life. The market is unpredictable and often brutal, but a clear, disciplined mind can profit from it. Years later, at age 25, a group of wealthy investors gave him $500,000 and told him to buy oil wells. Rockefeller toured the fields, looked at the frenzy around him, and came back without spending a single dollar. The hype felt wrong. The crowd was too excited. So he returned the money and waited. That single choice of restraint set the foundation for everything that followed. Within 2 decades, he controlled 90% of the American oil industry. His competitors had gone broke chasing every boom. His nervous partners had sold out too early. Rockefeller alone stayed steady. The secret was never the oil itself. It was how he saw every crisis. He trained himself to look at panic, depression, and chaos and see opportunity instead of disaster. During the Civil War and the panics of 1873, 1907, and 1929, he kept the same calm focus. The worse things got around him, the clearer his thinking became. He made his greatest fortunes precisely when everyone else was terrified or greedy. As he later put it, he was inclined to see the opportunity in every disaster. This is the discipline of perception. It is not about pretending things are good when they are not. It is about seeing them exactly as they are, without the fog of emotion, exaggeration, or fear. Most people let obstacles control their minds. They become angry, discouraged, or overwhelmed. Rockefeller refused to let that happen. He chose objectivity when others were emotional. He kept his nerves steady when others lost theirs. He searched for the hidden advantage while others only saw pain. You will face obstacles that feel unfair or overwhelming: financial crashes, sudden setbacks, personal crises. What matters is not the obstacle itself, but how you choose to see it. You can decide to view it as a roadblock, or you can decide to view it as a classroom. Nothing forces you to panic. Nothing forces you to give in to despair. Those reactions are choices, and you control them. To master this discipline, focus on staying objective, on keeping your emotions steady, on deliberately looking for the good that can come from any situation, on holding your nerve when pressure rises, on ignoring what rattles everyone else, on placing events in their proper perspective, on staying firmly in the present moment, and on directing all your energy only toward what you can actually control. When you do these things, the obstacle stops being something that defeats you. It becomes something that strengthens you. This is the first and most important shift. Master perception, and every trial in life begins to work in your favor instead of against you. Chapter 2. Recognize your power. Rubin Hurricane Carter was a top contender for the middleweight boxing title when he was wrongly convicted of triple homicide and sentenced to 3 life terms in prison. The fall from fame and success was sudden and crushing. When he arrived at the prison gates in his tailored suit and gold watch, he asked to speak to the warden. Looking the man straight in the eye, Carter made one thing clear. He was not surrendering the last thing he still controlled: himself. He would remain in prison until justice was served, but he refused to be treated like a prisoner. He would not wear the uniform, eat the prison food, accept visitors, attend parole hearings, or work in the commissary. No one could lay a hand on him. Every single minute of his energy was directed toward his legal case. He spent his days reading law books, philosophy, and history, turning his cell into a place of study rather than defeat. After 19 years and 2 trials, the verdict was overturned. Carter walked out a free and innocent man. He filed no lawsuit for damages and asked for no apology, because in his view, they had never taken anything from him that truly mattered. He had simply chosen not to be harmed. This is the power every one of us holds. No matter how difficult the situation, we decide what we will make of every event. We decide whether we will break or resist. We decide whether we will accept defeat or keep moving forward. Our perceptions are completely within our control. Others can lock us away, take our possessions, or label us however they wish, but they can never control our thoughts, our beliefs, or our reactions. We are never truly powerless. Even when almost everything is stripped away, 2 freedoms always remain: your mind and your time. Great figures like Nelson Mandela and Malcolm X understood this and used their years in prison as a workshop for self-transformation. If an unjust prison sentence can be turned into a period of growth and strength, then no obstacle we face is without some potential benefit. Situations themselves carry no fixed meaning. They are neither good nor bad until we assign a judgment to them. Consider Laura Ingalls Wilder, who faced harsh soil, Indian Territory, Kansas prairies, and the humid backwoods of Florida. She chose to see every hardship as an adventure. She met each challenge with steady work and a cheerful spirit instead of bitterness. Many of us face far smaller difficulties and immediately conclude that we are finished. In doing so, we become complicit in creating the obstacle. Through our own perception, we turn a neutral event into something that defeats us. An employee makes a careless mistake that costs the company money. One leader sees only disaster and punishment. Another sees a rare teaching moment that cuts through complacency and delivers a lesson experience alone can provide. The event is identical, but the result is entirely different because of how it was perceived. This is the quiet power you carry at all times. It applies to every situation you will ever face, and it cannot be taken from you. It can only be surrendered by your own choice. When you fully recognize this power, no external obstacle can ever hold you back again. Chapter 3. Steady your nerves. Ulysses S. Grant once sat for a photograph with the famous Civil War photographer Matthew Brady. The studio was dark, so an assistant climbed onto the roof to open a skylight. The man slipped, and a shower of sharp glass 2 inches long rained down like daggers directly around Grant. Everyone watching froze in horror. Grant never moved. He simply glanced up at the broken ceiling, then returned his gaze to the camera as if nothing had happened. During the Overland campaign, Grant was studying the battlefield through field glasses when an enemy shell exploded and killed the horse right beside him. His eyes stayed fixed on the front lines. Another time, at Union headquarters near Richmond, a steamboat suddenly blew up while troops unloaded supplies. Debris, shells, and bodies flew everywhere. Everyone around him dropped to the ground. Grant ran straight toward the explosion. That is nerve. That is the ability to stay steady when everything around you is falling apart. In our own lives, the threats are rarely as dramatic, yet we often feel just as rattled. Competitors circle our business. Key people quit without warning. Systems crash under pressure. The boss piles on more work than anyone can handle. We step outside our comfort zone, and suddenly everything feels unstable. On top of that, there are always people who want to intimidate us, rush us, or force us into decisions before we are ready. They want us reacting on their terms. The question is simple: will you let any of it shake you? When we set big goals, pressure and stress arrive automatically. Surprises, setbacks, and sudden problems are almost guaranteed. In those moments, raw talent is not what matters most. What matters most is grace under fire, poise when others lose control, and the calm head that lets you think clearly while everyone else is panicking. Nerve is both defiance and acceptance at the same time. It says, I refuse to be intimidated. I refuse to call this a failure. At the same time, it says, this is on me now, and I have no time to waste being shaken or replaying what went wrong. Too many people are counting on me. There is always a counter-move. There is always a way through. Knowing this removes any reason to get worked up. The path exists for anyone willing to stay steady and take it. This means preparing yourself in advance for the realities you will face. It means steeling your nerves so you can give your best effort no matter what happens. It means shaking off the chaos the moment it arrives and continuing forward, eyes straight ahead, as though the disruption never occurred. When your nerve holds, nothing truly harmful has happened. Your steady perception turns the event into something of no real consequence. Master this discipline, and you gain an unbeatable advantage. You become the person who moves forward while others freeze, the one who keeps thinking clearly when everyone else is overwhelmed. That calm, controlled presence is what turns obstacles into opportunities and pressure into power. Chapter 4. Control your emotions. Would you have a great empire? Rule over yourself. That was the advice from the ancient writer Publius Cyrus, and it remains one of the most important rules for handling obstacles. When America prepared to send the first men into space, NASA trained the astronauts in one skill above everything else: the art of not panicking. Panic causes people to make mistakes. It makes them override systems, ignore procedures, deviate from the plan, and stop thinking clearly. Instead of responding to the actual problem, they react to the fear flooding their bodies. In a tiny spaceship hurtling through space, panic is not just dangerous, it is suicide. To prevent it, NASA recreated the entire launch day hundreds of times. From breakfast to the ride to the airfield, every sight and sound was practiced until it felt completely familiar. They removed every possible surprise. Uncertainty and fear fade when you have authority over the situation, and training provides that authority. With enough repetition, even the most natural fears lose their power. John Glenn, the first American to orbit the Earth, spent nearly a full day in space with his heart rate never rising above 100 beats per minute. That is a man truly in control of his emotions. Most of us cannot say the same. We face a difficult client, a stranger on the street, or a crowd we must address, and our heart races or our stomach drops. We treat these moments as emergencies even though they are nothing of the kind. The Greeks had a word for the calm we need: apatheia. It means freedom from irrational or destructive emotions, not the absence of all feeling, but the refusal to let harmful ones take over. You simply say no to panic. You say no to the negativity that clouds your thinking. This skill must be developed so that your energy goes towards solving the problem instead of reacting to it. A sudden email from your boss, an argument at a bar, bad news from the bank, an unexpected accident. Any of these can trigger strong emotions. But ask yourself a simple question: does getting upset give me more options? In most cases, the answer is no. If an emotion cannot change the situation, it is probably unhelpful or even destructive. You are allowed to feel the emotion. Take a moment if you need it. Real strength is not pretending you feel nothing. It is controlling and directing those feelings instead of being controlled by them. Remind yourself, I am in control, not my emotions. I see what is really happening here. Use logic to push back. Ask clear questions. We lost money, but are losses not a normal part of business? Are these losses truly catastrophic? Have I not handled worse before? Keep asking until the extreme reaction loses its grip. You can also repeat a simple truth. I am not going to die from this. Or use Marcus Aurelius's test. Does what happened prevent me from acting with justice, generosity, self-control, sanity, prudence, honesty, humility, or straightforwardness? If the answer is no, then get back to work. Subconsciously, we should always be checking. Do I need to freak out about this? For astronauts, soldiers, doctors, and anyone who performs under pressure, the answer is almost always no. They have practiced. They can control themselves. They know that panic adds nothing useful. Master this discipline and emotions stop ruling your decisions. You stay clear-headed when others lose control. You focus on solutions instead of drama, and that calm gives you a decisive edge over every obstacle life places in your path. Chapter 5. Practice objectivity. Seeing events exactly as they are, without adding any extra meaning or emotion, is one of the most useful skills you can develop. Most of us do the opposite. We take a neutral situation and immediately color it with our personal feelings. We turn a simple fact into a dramatic story that makes everything feel worse than it really is. Imagine your car breaks down on the highway. The immediate thought for many people is, this is awful. My whole day is ruined. Why does everything bad always happen to me? The objective view is different. The car has stopped working. That is all. Now the only task is to handle the situation, call for help, arrange a ride, or fix the problem. Nothing more has been added. The breakdown itself carries no judgment. It is simply a mechanical event that requires a practical response. The Stoics made this clear-eyed view a daily practice. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself to look at life without the fog of opinion or exaggeration. He would ask, what is actually happening here, separate from how I feel about it? This habit kept him steady through wars, plagues, and political betrayals. It allowed him to respond to reality instead of reacting to his own fears or frustrations. In everyday life, the same principle applies. When a business deal falls apart, the emotional reaction says, I failed and everything is over. The objective reaction says, the negotiation did not succeed. What can I learn and what is the next step? When someone criticizes your work, the subjective mind hears an attack on your worth. The objective mind hears information that may or may not be useful, then decides calmly whether to use it or set it aside. Objectivity does not mean you stop feeling anything. It means you refuse to let those feelings twist the facts. You pause for a moment and ask a few clear questions. What are the plain facts right now? What would an outside observer see? How can I describe this situation without using words like terrible, unfair, or impossible? Each time you do this, the obstacle shrinks to its true size. It stops feeling overwhelming and starts feeling manageable. This discipline gives you a quiet advantage. While others are lost in their own stories and drama, you remain clear and focused. You see the path through the problem because you are not blinded by emotion or bias. You deal with what is real instead of what you imagine or fear. Practice objectivity every single day and obstacles lose their power to control you. They become simple facts that you can handle with steady, effective action. Chapter 6. Alter your perspective. Thomas Edison had spent years building his West Orange laboratory into the most advanced invention factory in the world. One night in 1914, a massive fire broke out and destroyed nearly everything. Decades of work, priceless prototypes, and irreplaceable records went up in flames. Most people would have seen total ruin. Edison, standing at the scene with his coat over his shoulders, simply watched the fire for a moment, and then said to his son, "Go get your mother and her friends. They will never see a fire like this again." The next morning, he told his employees, "There is great value in disaster. All our mistakes are burned up. Thank God we can start anew." Within weeks, he had rebuilt the laboratory and was working on new inventions with even greater energy than before. The same event that would have crushed another man became the spark for Edison's next chapter of success. This is what it means to alter your perspective. The obstacle does not change. The fire still happened. What changes is the way you choose to look at it. One angle shows only loss and tragedy. A different angle reveals a clean slate, a chance to improve, and a dramatic story worth telling. The facts stay the same. Your view decides everything. You can practice this shift every day. When something goes wrong, ask yourself a few simple questions. How else could I see this? What would someone who admired me say about it? If this happened to a friend, what advice would I give? How will I feel about this in 1 year or 5? Each question pulls you out of the narrow emotional view and opens up a wider, calmer, more useful one. Sometimes the best perspective is to make the obstacle smaller. Zoom out. Remind yourself that this problem is tiny compared to the size of your life or the challenges others have overcome. Sometimes the best perspective is to make it larger. See it as training, as preparation, as the exact experience you need right now to become stronger. The obstacle stays the same, but your relationship to it completely changes. Most people lock onto the first view that appears and never question it. They decide the situation is terrible, unfair, or impossible, and that decision becomes their reality. You do not have to accept the first story your mind offers. You can step back and deliberately choose a better one. That single act of choosing a new perspective turns a wall into a doorway and a setback into a setup for something better. Master this discipline, and you gain the ability to rewrite every obstacle in real time. What once felt heavy suddenly feels light. What once stopped you now moves you forward. The obstacle remains, but you are no longer trapped by it. You have stepped around it with nothing more than a shift in the way you see. Chapter 7. Is it up to you? In life, our first job is this: to divide and distinguish things into 2 categories. Externals I cannot control, but the choices I make with regard to them I do control. Where will I find good and bad? In me, in my choices. Tommy John, one of baseball's most savvy and durable pitchers, played 26 seasons in the majors. 26 seasons. His rookie year, Kennedy was president. His final year, it was George H.W. Bush. He pitched to Mickey Mantle and Mark McGwire. It is an almost superhuman accomplishment, but he was able to do it because he got really good at asking himself and others, in various forms, one question over and over again. Is there a chance? Do I have a shot? Is there something I can do? All he ever looked for was a yes, no matter how slight or tentative or provisional the chance. If there was a chance, he was ready to take it and make good use of it, ready to give every ounce of effort and energy he had to make it happen. If effort would affect the outcome, he would die on the field before he let that chance go to waste. The first time came during the middle of the 1974 season, when Tommy John blew out his arm, permanently damaging the ulnar collateral ligament in his pitching elbow. Up until this point in baseball and sports medicine, when a pitcher blew out his arm, that was it. They called it a dead arm injury. Game over. John would not accept that. Was there anything that could give him a shot to get back on the mound? It turns out there was. The doctors suggested an experimental surgery in which they would try to replace the ligament in his pitching elbow with a tendon from his other arm. What are the chances of me coming back after this surgery? 1 in 100. And without it, no chance, they said. He could have retired. But there was a 1 in 100 chance. With rehab and training, the opportunity was partially in his control. He took it and won 164 more games over the next 13 seasons. That procedure is now famously known as Tommy John surgery. Less than 10 years later, John mustered the same spirit and effort he marshaled for his elbow surgery when his young son fell horrifyingly from a 3rd-story window, swallowed his tongue, and nearly died. Even in the chaos of the emergency room, with doctors convinced that the boy probably would not survive, John reminded his family that whether it took 1 year or 10 years, they would not give up until there was absolutely nothing left that they could do. His son made a full recovery. For John, his baseball career seemed to finally come to an end in 1988, when at the age of 45 he was cut by the Yankees at the end of the season. Still, he would not accept it. He called the coach and demanded if he showed up at spring training as a walk-on the next spring, would he get a fair look? They replied that he should not be playing baseball at his age. He repeated the question, "Be straight with me, if I come down there, would I have a chance?" The baseball officials answered, "Fine, yes, you will get 1 look." So Tommy John was the first to report to camp. He trained many hours a day, brought every lesson he had learned playing the sport for a quarter century, and made the team as the oldest player in the game. He started the season opener and won, giving up a scant 2 runs over 7 innings on the road at Minnesota. The things that Tommy John could change, when he had a chance, got a full 100% of the effort he could muster. He used to tell coaches that he would die on the field before he quit. He understood that as a professional athlete, his job was to pass the difference between the unlikely and the impossible. Seeing that minuscule distinction was what made him who he was. To harness the same power, recovering addicts learn the serenity prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. This is how they focus their efforts. It is a lot easier to fight addiction when you are not also fighting the fact that you were born, that your parents were monsters, or that you lost everything. That stuff is done, delivered, 0 in 100 chances that you can change it. So what if you focused on what you can change? That is where you can make a difference. Behind the serenity prayer is a 2,000-year-old Stoic phrase, ta f hemin, ta uk f hemin. What is up to us? What is not up to us? And what is up to us? Our emotions, our judgments, our creativity, our attitude, our perspective, our desires, our decisions, our determination. This is our playing field. Everything there is fair game. What is not up to us? Well, everything else. The weather, the economy, circumstances, other people's emotions or judgments, trends, disasters, and so on. If what is up to us is the playing field, then what is not up to us are the rules and conditions of the game, factors that winning athletes make the best of and do not spend time arguing against, because there is no point to argue, to complain, or worse, to just give up. These are choices that more often than not do nothing to get us across the finish line. When it comes to perception, this is the crucial distinction to make, the difference between the things that are in our power and the things that are not. That is the difference between the people who can accomplish great things and the people who find it impossible to stay sober, to avoid not just drugs or alcohol, but all addictions. In its own way, the most harmful dragon we chase is the one that makes us think we can change things that are simply not ours to change. That someone decided not to fund your company, this is not up to you, but the decision to refine and improve your pitch, that is, that someone stole your idea or got to it first. No, to pivot, improve it, or fight for what is yours. Yes, focusing exclusively on what is in our power magnifies and enhances our power, but every ounce of energy directed at things we cannot actually influence is wasted, self-indulgent, and self-destructive. So much power, ours and other people's, is frittered away in this manner. To see an obstacle as a challenge, to make the best of it anyway, that is also a choice that is up to us.